4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome, everyone, to the Board of Education Audit Committee meeting. I would like to call the meeting to order. Dr. Albright, may I have a roll call, please?
Renette Apodaca,
Here.
Sarah Brownstein, Josefina Dominguez, Scott Elder, Danielle Gonzalez, Courtney Jackson,
Here. Yay.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Here.
Barbara Peterson. She's here. She's coming into the room. Heather Sned.
Here.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Here.
Peggy Mula Aragon.
Here.
And Barbara is here for the record.
Okay, great. So we do have a quorum. So our first item for consideration and action is approval of the October 25th, 2023 Audit Committee meeting agenda. If I could have a motion.
I move to approve the October 25th, 2023 Audit Committee meeting agenda.
I'll second. It's Yolanda.
Okay, may I have a roll call?
Renette Apodaca,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez, Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Heather Stedden,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero,
Yes.
and Peggy Mula Aragon.
Yes. And our next item for consideration and action is approval of the minutes from the Audit Committee meeting of September 27th, 2023. If I could have a motion, please.
This is Crystal. I will move to approve the minutes of the Audit Committee meeting from September 27, 2023.
Second, this is Courtney.
Okay, may we have a roll call, please?
Renette Apodaca,
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Heather Snedden,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero,
Yes.
Peggy Mula Aragon.
Yes. And our first item for discussion is status update of the Albuquerque Public Schools external audit for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. And you have the floor.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, again, this is our monthly required update of the audit for FY for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023. We are in the final stages of wrapping up the audit. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sheila Herrera with Moss Adams to give her update.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the committee. We are on track to meet the November 6th exit conference. And so we are expecting to send over the entire district financial over to the state auditor that same week, which is ahead of the November 15th deadline. We have completed at this point 10 of the 31 charter school exit conferences and have the APS Foundation exit conference scheduled for tomorrow. And so we are on track to complete all of those by November 6th, same timeline as what we have yours scheduled for.
Okay.
That stand for questions.
All right. Any questions online? I see Barbara shaking her head no. And any questions here? No. Okay. If not, our next audit committee meeting will be November 6th, 2023 at 5 p.m. And then after that, January 23rd, 2024 at 7:30 a.m. And our meeting will be held at the Allison Bruce King Educational Complex, 6400 Uptown Boulevard, or live streamed at aps.edu. And with that, we are adjourned, and this meeting will be followed by a finance committee meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So welcome to the Finance Committee meeting. I would like to call the meeting to order. Dr. Albright, may I have a roll call, please?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Here.
Peggy Mula Aragon,
Here.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Here.
Barbara Peterson,
Here.
Josefina Dominguez, Courtney Jackson,
Here.
Crystal Tapia Romero,
Here.
Our first item for consideration and action is the approval of the October 25th, 2023 Finance Committee meeting agenda. May I have a motion, please?
I'll move for. Go ahead. I'll move for approval of the October 25th, 2023 Finance Committee meeting agenda.
I will second. This is Danielle.
Thank you. Dr. Albright, may I have a vote, please?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Peggy Mota Aragon.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes. So our next item for consideration and action is the approval of the minutes from the Finance Committee meeting on September 27th, 2023. May I have a motion?
I'll move for approval of the minutes from the Finance Committee meeting on September 27th, 2023.
Second, this is Courtney.
Thank you. Dr. Albright, may I have a roll call?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Peggy Mota Aragon.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
and Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes. So our next item for consideration and action is the approval of grant budget adjustments for the following funds. We have one social emotional learning for ESSER for 2023-2024. Number two, the preschool idea B for 2023-2024. Number three, the Ed Fellows from Region 9 Ed Cooperative for 2023-2024. And number four, the Sandia-based construction project 2023-2024. I will turn it over to Ms. Marin, our Senior Director of Grant Management. You have the floor.
Thank you so much. Madam Chair, members of the board, presenting for your consideration of approval, the budget adjustments for the month of October 2023. I did not see anything out of the ordinary, and I stand for questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
I just have a quick follow-up. So on the SEL with the ESSER funds and the use of funds with salary, benefits, contracts, and supplies. And I know, was this just extra time that was paid for since it wasn't any FTEs? So was that just like extra time or mostly was it supplies?
Board Member Miller-Aragon, this is considered unliquidated. So it is basically the tail end expiring in 5 days. We are trying to obtain late budget for it. And if we are successful in obtaining late budget for it, we will look for existing expenses in salaries and benefits and move them against that budget in order to ensure that we spend the most that we can. It's a standard operation procedure in most grants to, if the grant allows for it. So we can try to make the most of every penny we receive, mostly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other additional questions?
I'll move for approval of the grant budget adjustments for the following funds as mentioned.
I'll second. Yolanda?
Thank you. Dr. Albright, may I have a roll call?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Peggy Mota Aragon,
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez, Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes. Our next item for consideration and action is the approval of September 2023 interfunction transfers for grant budget. And Ms. Marin, you continue to have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, presenting for your consideration of approval, the interfunction transfers for grant management for the month of September 2023. I did not see anything out of the ordinary, and I stand for questions.
Great. Thank you. Do we have any questions?
I had a follow-up.
Okay.
So I know that the 5.6 million is going to be used for reconstruction updates at Cochiti, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and so then the costs yet, we still don't know what the costs are going to be for Duranis. So we're just in the very beginning stages of that, as I understand. Is that correct?
That was my understanding also, Board Member
Okay.
Miller-Aragon.
Okay, and so, I mean, when I was looking at this and we were using, I think it was I wish I could remember, was it ESSER funds that we were using for that 5 point?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, and then I know that that's an allowable expense under ESSER. But I also saw that it was under SEL and I saw the explanation there. And I just wanted to just say, it kind of is a little bit upsetting to me that our current students that we know are suffering through a lot of social emotional problems. And we all know that money wasn't used to really help those current students. And I just wanted to just say that just makes me kind of sad about that, though I do understand those funds can be used for, these kinds of improvements. I just think that when I'm looking at where some of our ESSER funds are being spent, and I know we're under a time constraint to do it, I just wish we could have spent it on our current students that are really suffering. So,
Board Member Miller Aragon, and I'm not the
right, I know.
budget steering committee, but based on analyzing the ESSER funding throughout our allocating and spending it down, I know that the district prioritized direct intervention to the students, and based on service availability, so provider availability to us, they prioritized training to provide our teachers and staff the tools to support our student population throughout it. And the construction and investment in the ongoing projects is basically the third area in which we looked at. Based on direction received and training received from the public education department, and I can also reference Edunomics, we were encouraged to look at invest now to reap the rewards long term, and this is what this funding was identified for.
And I know, I mean, I understand that. I just wish it was just directed exactly at our kids now. So thank you.
And Board Member Peterson?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, obviously, our first choice would be to have more counselors, smaller classrooms, and all of those things. But we have a huge workforce issue, and I think it's important for the community to understand that we make choices right now based on our capacity with our workforce. And since the money isn't recurring, we've always had the concern about hiring people that we could not continue to employ into the future. So I think it's important for the community to understand why we make these decisions with the ESSER funds.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, I'll ask for a motion.
I'll move for approval of the September 2023 interfunction transfers for grant budget.
I'll second. Yolanda?
Thank you. Dr. Albright, may I have a roll call?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Peggy Mola Aragon,
Yes, but please, if you can make sure, note my disapproval of where the funds were not used. Thank you.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Crystal Romero.
Yes. Our next item for consideration action is the approval of September 2023 intra-function transfers for grant budget. And Ms. Marin, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, presenting for your consideration of approval, the grant management intra-function transfers for the month of September 2023. I did not see anything out of the ordinary, and I stand for questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions associated to this?
I do.
Go ahead.
So I know that a question was answered there about the $500,000 that was going to go to communication services. And you still didn't really, I know that was going to be moved to communication, and you still didn't, and you still don't have an idea exactly what that might be used for. And these were also ARPA funds, right?
Board Member Muragon, yes, these are
Okay.
ARPA funds, and per the program mod for this particular funding, it is funds for promoting initiatives such as Emerging Stronger, the search for a new superintendent, and other communication needs and products identified by district leadership.
And then the other one that I was looking at was about some of the professional development that was being used, and we had a big list of that. So my question is, some of that was for the training for Odell for the new materials for ELA. And I just want to know, those materials were supposed to be in every school for the 23-24 school year. And as I've been told by schools, those materials, many have still not been made available, yet they are having the PD. So if those materials were supposed to be available for the teachers to use this school year, and it's almost November and they still don't have everything, yet they're going to receive the training. And I'm just wondering how you get a PD training if you don't even have the materials to use. So if somebody could help me with that.
Board Member Mueller-Aragon, if I could, sorry, Board Member Mueller-Aragon, if I could get a list of everyone that thinks they're missing materials and what they're missing, I can look into that and make sure that everyone has their materials. The bulk of the materials should be at schools by this point. And if someone doesn't have their materials, please let me know so I can get them their materials.
And I think that I know that why that's kind of difficult is that all the ELA teachers would know that they didn't have the materials. The principals might not all know they don't have the materials, right? And so I think, and I don't know if there's a way to do this, is to get word out to those teachers, because some of the principals don't even know that they don't have the materials. But I know that there's some training coming up, I believe on the 7th, there's going to be that Odell training. I don't know if it's everywhere, but I know at some schools I've been told they are having it then.
Board Member Mueller-Aragon, if you're hearing that, there are a few things we can do. Like, I can tell the librarians, please check in with your teachers. I have a very uncommon name in New Mexico, and anyone can just email me directly.
I just want to figure out how to make sure that those teachers that don't have it and principals might be unaware. I just want to know whatever it is they can do, if there's somehow that we can, I know we don't have the superintendent here, but if somebody's listening, is try to make sure to get that out there, because it is November and they can't be teaching it even though they're supposed to be if they don't have everything.
There are a lot of materials, and it is a lot for them to absorb and a lot to deliver, and to sort through. So there are several logistical things but we can look into it if we know the specifics and figure out what exactly is going on at each school.
Okay. And then I know with that PD, then this was extra that you had to pay on top of the materials. Then you also had this extra cost for the PD to be provided, correct?
Correct. Increasingly, that is a standard model that we're seeing. If we want the kind of in-depth, really high quality professional development that will change adult behaviors, we don't want to just do the kind of professional development that won't. And unfortunately, like everything else, it does cost money. I wish more things were free.
No, it's good. I mean, you should have good professional development. So I think that's important. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'll move for approval of the September 2023 interfunction transfers of all non-categorical funds.
I'll second. This is Courtney.
This is for grant budget.
For grant budget, grant management, I went down to one too many. So I'll consider approval of September 2023 intra-function transfers for grant budget. I went down one.
Second that one too.
Dr. Albright, may I have a roll call, please?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes.
Peggy Mueller-Aragon.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes.
Barbara Peterson.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
And Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes. Thank you, ladies. Our next item for consideration and action is the approval of September 2023 interfunction transfers for all non-categorical funds. And we have Ms. Juliana Hicks, our Senior Director of Budget Strategic Planning. You have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you. This agenda item requests your approval of 8 interfunction budget transfers. 3 are using at-risk budgets. 1 is using the bilingual budget at that school, and the remaining 4 are using the general ed budgets. You've got the justifications in front of you. Can I answer any questions on these?
Thank you. Any additional questions that have not been asked? If not, I will ask for approval.
I guess I'll do it. Consider approval of the September 2023 interfunction transfers for all non-categorical funds. I'm on the right one, right?
Yes.
I'll
Right.
second. This is Peggy.
Thank you. Dr. Albright, may I have a roll call?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Peggy Mota Aragon,
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
and Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes. So our next item for consideration and action is the approval of September 2023 intra-function transfers for all non-categorical funds. And Ms. Hicks, you may continue on the floor.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, I apologize. I didn't do my protocol on the.
You're fine. You're fine.
So this agenda item requests your approval on intra-function transfers from September. We answered an initial question about the second, or I should say 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth one for $7.8 million. And just wanted to check and make sure that there weren't any follow-up questions on that one.
Thank you. Any additional questions related to this item? Barbara says no. Anybody else? Okay, I'll ask for approval. Thank you.
I'll move for approval of the September 2023 interfunction transfers for all non-categorical funds.
I'll second. This is Courtney.
Thank you. Dr. Albright, may I have a roll call?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Peggy Mota Aragon.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
and Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes. So our next item for consideration and action is the approval of gifts, grants, and donations for more than $5,000. And Mr. Turnbull, I will turn it over to you, sir.
Madam Chair, members of the board, and this agenda item is for consideration of approval for some donations. First donation is $5,000 to Osuna Elementary from the Osuna Elementary PTA. The second donation is for $16,600 to S.Y. Jackson Elementary School from the S.Y. Jackson Elementary School PTA. I stand for questions.
Very cool. Okay, any questions associated to this?
I don't have any questions. I just want to give a shout out to the PTAs and all that they do to help the schools. That is absolutely incredible. And I'm so glad that PTAs are there to help. And if there are no further questions, I will move to approve, move to approve gifts, grants, donations of more than $5,000 for $5,000 to Osuna Elementary School and $16,600 to S.Y. Jackson Elementary School.
I'll second. Yolanda.
Thank you. Dr. Albright, may I have a roll call?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Peggy Mota Aragon,
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
and Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes, fantastic. Okay, our next item for consideration and action is the approval of statement of equipment to be taken out of service. This is for June 1st through the 30th, 2023. This is for salvage and technology. And Mr. Turnbull, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Again, this is consideration of approval for statements of equipment to be taken out of service as of June 2023. And attached is the detailed information on that. I stand for questions.
Sir, do we have any questions associated to this item?
I do, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
So on the missing assets over 2 years, so the last time that we received a missing assets list was back in 2018, I believe. Is that correct, Mr. Turnbull? That's the last time I remember us getting one, because then it's like 2 years, then the pandemic happened. So that would have been 2020. And then it seems like everything just kind of, there was a pause. So then we're waiting till as I understand that there was in uninterrupted years. So that would have been, everybody kind of went back to school in the 22, 23, 21, 22, and 22, 23. So that means that's been 2 full years. So we should be getting one of these lists this year soon, shouldn't we?
Correct.
Okay, so I know, correct. So that should be happening. I mean, it's almost November, so what are the chances that it might not happen in 2023?
What I would recommend Board Member Mueller-Aragon is that the finance chair can, and with the ad hoc committee, we can take a look at that and sort of decide or work on some recommendations for a schedule for that, so we can make sure that it's up to date. But it seems like we do have a nod, an assurance that yes, it's going to come. But I think if we could just have the committee chair and the ad hoc committee, just as we're working with that group, get really clear on a schedule for that.
That would be, that's been like 5 years. So I think it's,
Okay. We'll
think
add
it's
that
time.
to our list of items.
yeah. And then as it concerns like the unaccounted for devices, so we also receive this unaccounted for device list, right? And so all that information is yet to be compiled as well. That's what the answer to the question was. So is there a reason that it's taking a little bit longer?
Madam Board Member Mueller-Aragon, I'll go ahead and refer to Ms. Apodaca.
Thank you. So Madam Chair, Board Member, yes, we've been working on that list. And the accounted for is very similar to like if you have a library book or a textbook or an instrument, you know, we assign them, we issue them, and the students are responsible for returning them. So it's very much in the same type of category.
Okay.
So as a library book, textbook, or instrument, you do look at each case by case to make sure that we follow our process.
And so can this list, so it said that you are still working on compiling all the information from the last 7 years. Is there a reason that we're having to look for the last 7 years? What happened there?
Board Member Aragon, Madam Chair, as you know, we did have a turnover in that department. So we are looking at what has been completed and what hasn't been completed. And unfortunately, some of, the management prior didn't complete all of the processes. So we're catching all of that up and we will be bringing it to the board.
Okay. That might be a lot to look at. Glad you're working on it. So then another question is they have, and I was told that whenever a device is unaccounted for, that it is disabled as soon as you know it's unaccounted for. But if you don't have the unaccounted for list, does that mean a whole bunch of those devices are still working if we don't know who has an unaccounted for device? So would those be the ones that are still not disabled?
Madam Chair, Board Member Hadakon, I do see Joshua Meyer is on the virtual, so he might be able to give some information on the technology process.
Okay.
Yes, hi, Madam Chair, members of the board, Board Member Mueller-Aragon. So the only time a device is actually disabled on the backend system is if a police report had been generated by the school site. And I can tell you as of 10/25/2022 to today, which is a year, 258 lost stolen police reports were generated by school staff. And that included 680 devices because some of the police reports included multiple devices.
Okay. So then we're just believing that all those devices have been disabled that should have been disabled then. We can.
So this I talked to some Capital Fiscal Services staff members today, and they provided some preliminary numbers. I know that Mark's team is going to continue to work on these numbers. But when they initially started the large scale audit, there was a lot that was considered missing, which just meant it wasn't scanned when there was an audit done at the school site. But through the additional due diligence at the school sites of scanning along with their large scale audits, the number that I'm looking at right now is, pull up my notes, 12,165 missing, which just means it has not been scanned. But again, this is capital fiscal services process, and I'm part of the technology department, but that is how I understand it.
So we have 165 devices that are missing.
And missing status in TipWeb.
Right. I think a lot of it is just the terminology that's being used, because it's not like it's not accounted for. It's just, it still needs to be scanned and go through the process, which will eventually lower the number that you just reported on.
Correct. And Capital Fiscal Services is out doing audits as we speak. I think I saw 3 today. But again, I don't want to speak for Mark's department. I know that I had that information because I spoke to them earlier.
So you're just, some of the devices then weren't scanned and assigned into TipWeb then? Is that is at the school level, that at some of those schools that's what happened?
The way I understand it, that's correct.
Okay. So let me make sure I have all my questions answered. And how are we doing about making sure that the process for getting them scanned into TipWeb is getting better? Is there a process that we're using that will make it better than us having 12,165 devices? I don't know, Mr. Turnbull, if you know.
We continue to provide training to the schools yearly to emphasize the use of TipWeb for their assets and to provide any training needed. The several trainings we have at the beginning of the year, we've focused on that because ultimately they have custody of those assets. So anytime we provide it, especially our inventory team is very good at providing whatever support they can to the school to help track those and help them understand the importance of TipWeb and keeping track of their assets.
Right. And I think in addition to this, similar to what President Montoya Cordova said, we can work with Ms. Apodaca and the team to really tighten up the measures that we've had, because obviously we've had different people come in and out, the turnover, new systems put in place even throughout the pandemic, and to ensure that we are just more accountable for these devices.
Yes.
And we'll have that total like that. We should have that, hopefully not too far in the future. And then we'll have an idea about the cost of the ones that are truly, we find that are truly missing. Because I think it's like probably not, it's obviously not going to be 12,165. So we'll get those numbers as well. And with the cost of the missing assets, right, as well, missing devices.
Yes.
Okay. And then the last question that I have about this, I mean, I know that the responsibility is at the school level to determine who didn't return their devices. So that isn't on any department here. That really is at the school level for them to know who should have those devices.
Madam Chair, Board Member Mueller Aragon, it really has to do with care, custody, and control. So if you think about it, perhaps at the beginning, it could be the technology department who has care, custody, and control, and then they assign it to the school. So at that point, it could be somebody at the school who has care, custody, and control, and then it goes to the student. And then at that time, it's on the student and they have the care, custody, and control. So it's really all of us. It's the school, it's technology, it's parents, it's students, all of us to protect the assets.
So then, like Ms. Apodaca, so as I remember, it was like the end, I just remember Dr. Bowman saying this, the last week of school or a couple of weeks before school was out, they were going to be, and especially I think during the pandemic, they were going to have the last week or two collect all the devices, right? And then what's the next step after that? is that when they would get, once they were collected, is that when they would get scanned into TipWeb also to know that they were collected? I just want to know what the process was for that.
Josh, can you help with that, with the processes?
Yeah, of course. So board member Mula Aragon, we gave instructions to the schools, provided training on how to quick collect the devices to the school site. And then they also had clear directions on how to issue the student a device when they started the new school year.
Okay, and then so I get that works for the kids that are still in the school. If they move to another school, I'm sure there's kind of maybe a different process there. And for any seniors, you can answer this question. Did any school staff allow graduating seniors to keep their Chromebooks?
So we did hear rumors of that. That was kind of mid-pandemic, so probably about 2 years ago. We didn't see any real evidence. I'm speaking from the technology department side of things. We didn't see real evidence that that was happening, especially on a large scale, because that would have definitely been on our radar. It would have been something that we definitely would have shut down, and it would have definitely been something that we would have escalated up to senior leadership.
Okay, so it's just a rumor that can now be put to rest.
I believe so. That's our perspective.
Thank you.
Of course.
So Madam Chair, I was just going to note that I think where we need to be at the board level on this conversation is really to understand, what kind of abandonment did we have to do? Because was there a loss of staff? Was there a loss of resource to be able to do this job really well, right? So I think we need to take into account, because we may have moved resources to support classroom instruction or to move something else. And so there was a loss of staff. And so as a result, we just can't get to the completion at the way that it is. There's no shame or blame in all of this, but I think it just has us going back to look at the way that resources are aligned so that we can actually, because what I'm hearing is it's cascading. It goes down to the school level. And I always worry about at the school level in terms of another ask of what they need to do. Did they lose staff? Did we lose something because we moved it somewhere else so that we could resource this thing? So I think for us as a school board, those are the kinds of things that we need to look at. And we could probably get to once Ms. Apodaca and the team tells us with the resources, what happened, and we have a better idea of where we are. I think it's really looking at, was there a shift in resources to be able to make this work well? And again, it's just like those operational decisions that sometimes are difficult that has to be made because we're realigning money to meet other needs and other demands that we want for the district, because we want everything, but we've got this much of a resource. And so I think as we're working with that ad hoc group, we could probably look at that as well and see if this was an area where, things fell through the gap because there was also a cut in a resource somewhere.
Thank you. Any other additional questions related to this? If not, I will ask for approval.
I'll move for approval of statement of equipment to be taken out of service for June 1st through the 30th for 2023.
I'll second. This is Danielle.
Thank you. Dr. Albright, may I have a roll call?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes.
Peggy Mula Aragon.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes.
Barbara Peterson.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes, thank you. Our next item for consideration and action is the approval of district purchase or expenditure that equals or exceeds $250,000. This is for annual renewal of global positioning equipment and service. And Ms. Gensler, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm asking for consideration for the approval for the purchase of the annual renewal of global positioning equipment service. This is procured through a CES contract. The total purchase will be $444,080.54, and it's using transportation enterprise funds. With that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Perfect, thank you. Any questions? If not, I will ask for approval.
I'll move for approval of district purchase or expenditure that equals or exceeds $250,000 annual renewal of global positioning equipment and service.
A second, this is Courtney.
Thank you. Dr. Albright, may I have a roll call?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Peggy Muller Aragon,
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes. Our next item for consideration and action is the approval of district purchase or expenditure that equals or exceeds $250,000. This is for a refresh of computer devices. And Ms. Gensler, I will turn it back over to you.
You, Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm asking for consideration for the approval of the purchase of the refresh of computer devices. This is utilizing a statewide price agreement as well as a cooperative education services agreement. The estimated total purchase will be $12.6 million, and it's utilizing capital funds. With that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Any questions? No further questions. I'll ask for approval.
I move to approve the district purchase or expenditure that equals or exceeds $250,000 for a refresh of computer devices.
I'll second. Yolanda?
Thank you. Dr. Albright, may I have a roll call?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Peggy Muller Aragon.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez,
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes. Our next item for consideration and action is the approval of district purchase or expenditure that equals or exceeds $250,000. This is for occupational and physical therapy services as needed. And you may continue to have the floor.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm requesting consideration for the approval for the purchase of occupational and physical therapy services as needed. It was utilizing an RFP we issued. The estimated cost is $2.1 million for a 4-year contract utilizing both federal and operational funds. With that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
I'll move for approval of district purchase or expenditure that equals or exceeds $250,000 for occupational and physical therapy services as needed.
A second, this is Courtney.
Thank you. Dr. Albright, may I have a roll call?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova,
Yes.
Peggy Muller Aragon,
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes.
Barbara Peterson,
Yes.
Courtney Jackson,
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes. Our next item for consideration and action is the approval of district purchase or expenditure that equals or exceeds $250,000. This is for marketing services as needed. And Ms. Gensler, you have the floor.
Thank you. Madam Chair, members of the board, I'm requesting consideration and approval for the purchase of marketing services as needed. This was utilizing an RFP we issued as the procurement method. The estimated purchase for the 4-year contract is $1 million utilizing federal, capital, and operational funds. With that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Any further questions?
I just have a quick one. So it'll be about $330,000 a year then, about, correct? It's is it a 4-year contract, right?
4-year
So about that much, depending on what is needed.
Yes, I believe there are federal funds that may need to be utilized sooner, but yes, for the overall 4-year contract.
Okay. Do you have an idea, Ms. Gensler, what, I know some of this was coming from ESSER funds. Do you have an idea about how much of that $1 million was coming from ESSER funds? Because those would obviously have to be spent sooner than the others.
So I believe 700,000 for this fiscal year is going to be utilizing both ESSER funds and capital. It's a mix. And then the other 300,000 for 24 through 27. So it is front loaded for the ESSER funds.
Okay. So the 700,000 is equal between ESSER and capital?
I don't know that the number is actually equal. It's a mixture of the funds. I could get you further information if you wanted a breakdown of that.
Okay. And I mean, I don't know that you would know this answer or not, but when we're using ESSER funds on things that are not going directly into the classroom. This is for marketing, and I saw all the good things that we can do with that. And our school system is, we have a lot of really great schools and fabulous kids. And we need to highlight that and tell our story better. And I understand that marketing is going to be good for that, and it's going to be used for a lot of that. But my concern again is that we have a lot of kids suffering a lot right now, and that money could have been directed more toward them. And I'm just wondering, why we didn't do that? Was it just difficult because of what Member Peterson said a lot, because we didn't maybe have the personnel to meet some of the kids' needs? Is that a big part of it? And this is obviously, you know, outside with people that are going to be providing these services. I just don't know what the answer is, and I have to answer to people about that, so.
Understood. I would probably defer, I would like to defer to both Monica Armenta or Casito, because we tend to focus on the procurement method, following all the legality and not determining the need. So I believe they are both available online.
And I think before Ms. Armenta speaks, like, here's one thing that I, like, my perspective when it comes to marketing is we've always talked about how we get our message out, you know, in terms of student outcomes, what we're doing as a board, how the shifts that we've made, whether it's with, you know, digital advertisement, billboards, social media, you know, there's different ways that we have to be able to talk about with families and with our constituents what we are doing that is making the steps going forward, you know. So I do see that it might not be like a direct impact in terms of what that's maybe associated with learning loss, but really trying our best to bridge that gap of communication, because we said that was one of our downfalls. And additionally, when even talking about all the good things that are happening with APS, that's how we continue to build our enrollment, how we can actually retain our students when we're talking about what APS is doing right versus always hearing about what's doing wrong. So my 2 cents, but Ms. Armenta, you can
Thank
join.
you, Madam Chair, Board Member Mila Aragon, and others. Thank you for this opportunity. There is a more direct benefit to students, and I think that the word marketing is a bit of a difficult word. It's a misinterpretation, maybe. We're really talking about communication services. So Albuquerque Public Schools, as you know, has limited resources and limited staff. We do a fairly good job, I believe, of getting the word out to the APS community, but we have never had a marketing budget to go outside the APS bubble. So when we have our job fairs, and it's critical for us to find bus drivers, special education teachers, bilingual teachers, we have to have a way to bring the public in to know about these opportunities and to get them into our classrooms. We do need to step up some of our marketing, as charters have been so successful in doing. We have exhausted pretty much all of our organic means of communicating and marketing in the district. You're very familiar now with the Clear Channel Outdoor initiative that we put in place maybe 15, 16 years ago. When you drive around town and you see charters advertising on billboards, they're paying for that space. Albuquerque Public Schools is not. That is part of the agreement that we have with them. We have recently used some of the ESSER monies to boost buys on social media so that, again, we can extend our reach and try and make sure that everyone out there has information that's critical. We're talking about things like the strategic plan, emerging stronger, bringing people into community meetings. Next week, we'll be focused on inviting the public in to help us pick our next superintendent. We have to have a venue to inform people and engage them. We also do a tremendous amount of work with all of our departments, like the foundation, making sure that they have videos for selfless seniors and the gold bar. Pretty much everything you see daily, everything you see that's on the web, that's in the news, on billboards, on social media. It's one of a handful of people who have made sure that that messaging is available, but we are limited in our reach. And from what I've understood in all the years I've been with Albuquerque Public Schools, it is a deep desire to make sure that the public has a better understanding of the successes as well as the challenges of Albuquerque Public Schools. And that's where these dollars are going, to make sure that we continue to build opportunities so the students know when scholarships are available, so that we're able to help the city of Albuquerque when they want to do a supply drive with APS when school starts, to help fill the food pantries at the McKinney-Vento Center as we're doing right now. Every last effort, not to mention elevating and celebrating teachers and coaches and counselors and schools, going all the way to, Washington, D.C. next month to be awarded a blue ribbon. Every last one of those initiatives requires communication. And that is where the funds that are assigned to the communications office will be used, as well as to support efforts like advertising for the school choice fair. Mr. Wajinja can talk about some of the initiatives he has, and other things like printing posters for Emerging Stronger and buying the frame so that they can be hung in schools. Without this resource, we don't have the ability to do that.
And so, Ms. Armenta, this will just help because your department, I know, is so small, and I know you just don't have the budget that you need to do this. So this will really be helpful to you to get the word out about our great schools and the great things that are happening. So, I mean, that's how I'm taking what you're saying.
Yes, board member Mulatto, but also to make sure that parents have critical information, such as when we changed the bell schedules and the calendar changed, when we decided, made a choice about snow days. Those are all huge decisions that impact not just the lives of our students and their families, but also our staff. And without some of this additional funding, we're limited in our reach.
And I know I've seen that a lot with the fact that we just don't have the budget to market like, maybe some other charter schools may have their budgets or other private schools might have the budget. So I'm hoping that this is going to be helpful to spread the word out there. So thank you for filling me in on everything, not everything that it's going to help us do, but all the good things that it will help us accomplish. I appreciate it. Thank you, Ms. Armenta.
I'll
Thank
move
you.
for approval of district purchase or expenditure that equals or exceeds 250,000 for marketing services as needed.
I'll second. This is Danielle.
Thank you. Dr. Albright, roll call, please.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes.
Peggy Mola Aragon.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes.
Barbara Peterson.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes, thank you. So our next item for consideration and action is the approval of district purchase or expenditure that equals or exceeds $250,000. This is for payroll fiscal services for student internships. Ms. Gensler, you continue to have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm asking for consideration of approval for the purchase of payroll fiscal services for the student internship. This is utilizing an RFP we issued, was the procurement method. The estimated cost is $330,000 annually, $1.3 million for a 4-year term contract, and this is utilizing federal funds. Again, the cost is dependent on need, funding, and budget. With that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Any questions? If not, I will ask for approval.
I will move for approval of district purchase or expenditure that equals or exceeds $250,000 for payroll fiscal services for student internships.
I'll second. This is Courtney.
Thank you. Dr. Albright, may I have a roll call?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes.
Peggy Mola Aragon.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes.
Barbara Peterson.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
And Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes. Our next item for consideration and action is approval of September 2023 cash disbursements. And Ms. Gensler, you continue to have the floor, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm requesting consideration and approval of the cash disbursements for September 2023. With that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Any questions? If not, I will ask for approval.
I'll move for approval of September 2023 cash disbursements.
I'll second. This is Danielle.
Thank you. Dr. Albright, may I have a roll call?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes.
Peggy Mola Aragon.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes.
Barbara Peterson.
Yes.
Josefina Dominguez. Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes. Our next item for consideration and action is the approval of district purchase or expenditure that equals or exceeds $250,000. This is for consulting services related to student-based budgeting. And you may continue to have the floor, Ms. Gensler.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I am requesting consideration and approval for the purchase of consulting services related to student-based budgeting. This would be, the vendor is Education Resource Strategy. It's utilizing a government contract, As the procurement method, the estimated purchase is $580,000. And it's utilizing operational funds. With that, I'm happy to answer questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
The only question I have, and I know this is just probably conjecture on your part. So we are like kind of almost like 2 years into this. So we've spent 411 and then this will be 580 for the next phase, I guess. And then there is a phase 3 and a phase 4. Is that correct?
It's possible. I would defer to, I have Renette Apataka, Rosalinda Montoya, as well as members from the ERS.
Okay, and will that be, Ms. Apataka, contingent on what? Whether we do phase 3, whether you all do phase 3 and phase 4?
Madam Chair, members of the board, board member Aragon. Actually, this next phase is phase 2 and 3. And then depending on the pilot and our next steps, that will determine the next steps after that. So, you know, we took the first one, the diagnostic. Now we're moving to the second one, which is the actual methodology and then the pilots. And all along, we will see what we do next after that.
So, and you all, I'm assuming, are very happy with what's going on, because student-based budgeting is, I mean, in my opinion, the way to go. You know, it's the way to go. It's best for our kids. And so after this third phase and how it goes is how you'll really determine if the pilot goes well, and then you'll determine about the fourth phase then. That would be district-wide then, correct?
Yes, that is correct. You know, looking at the pilots, it'll help us to determine where we might have to make changes and where we can start looking at the implementation and the training and the next steps, correct?
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions? If not, I'll ask for approval.
I'll move for approval of district purchase or expenditure that equals or exceeds 250,000 for consulting services related to student-based budgeting.
And I'll second.
There we go. Danielle, yes. And Dr. Albright, may I have a roll call?
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes.
Peggy Muller Aragon.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes.
Barbara Peterson.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
And Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes. So thank you.
Thank you.
And I got your name. I was very proud of myself. One time.
I helped her.
Our next finance committee meeting will be Wednesday, November 29th, 2023 at 5 p.m. And the meeting will be held here in the Ellis and Bruce King Educational Complex. So this meeting is now adjourned and will be followed by a special Board of Education meeting.
All right, so welcome to the Board of Education special board meeting. I would like to call this one to order. Dr. Albright, a roll call, please.
Peggy Muller Aragon.
Here.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Here.
Barbara Peterson.
Here.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Here.
Josefina Dominguez. Courtney Jackson.
Here.
Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Here. So our first item for consideration action is consider approval of the October 25th, 2023 special Board of Education meeting agenda. And just a reminder, if there's anything that needs to be taken off consent, you need to do it now. I'll ask for a motion.
I move to approve the October 25th, 2023 Special Board of Education meeting agenda.
And I will second.
I have a roll call, please.
Peggy Muller Aragon.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes.
Barbara Peterson.
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
And Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes, our next is a consent agenda. Is consideration and action, approval of the consent agenda. Has all the items listed from 3.1 to 3.14.
I will move to approve the consent agenda for items 3.1 to 3.14.
I'll second. This is Danielle.
Can I have a roll call, please?
Peggy Muller Aragon.
Yes.
Danielle Gonzalez.
Yes.
Barbara Peterson.
Yes.
Crystal Tapia Romero.
Yes.
Courtney Jackson.
Yes.
And Yolanda Montoya Cordova.
Yes, our next Board of Education meeting will be held November 1st, 2023 at 5 p.m. And our special Board of Education meeting will be held November 8th, 2023 at 5 p.m. Meetings will be held here, the Allison Bruce King Educational Complex, and live streamed at aps.edu. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.